Did your mum learn to swim in Dorking?
My mum not only learnt to swim in Dorking, she learnt to walk, breathe, eat, talk, everything. My mum owes Dorking, big time, which is why I'm paying back tonight.
Right, this is for Dorking.
This is for you, Dorking, and for mum. Okay, love a quiz. I'm Joe Stilgoe, singer, pianist, composer, lover, fighter. I had no idea that I wanted to be a musician for a long time, until I was 21. I love music. Obviously, my parents were both musicians. I grew up with that being a normal thing, and Dad going off to work and doing gigs. My mum used to sing opera, and Dad also wrote for theatre and did TV. And I suppose in my early 20s, I saw myself as being purely a jazz pianist with a bit of singing. And then singing took over, and then I started writing songs in a more serious fashion. And now songwriting is probably my main bread and butter. I live in Hove, in the city of Brighton and Hove, and we moved here about 2.5 years ago with my wife and 2 daughters. We love living here, and it's amazing being by the sea, and I feel like I can go out to my shed and write, and there are lots of inspiring things and lovely people. It's not the best placed location in terms of driving, but I wouldn't give it up for anything.
What mistakes did you make as a young musician?
I learnt the recorder for a year. In fact, that was the first time I was fired. I was asked to leave recorder group.
Can you tell us why?
No. The problem with recorder, I couldn't understand that you weren't allowed to. It's almost the less you blow, the better you are. Which is not a good adage for life, is it?
I don't know. God.
'Cause I'll be there, putting on my top hat, tying up my white tie, polishing my nails. I'm duding up my shirt front, putting in the shirt studs, dancing in my tails. I'm stepping out my day to breathe an atmosphere that simply reeks with class. And I trust that you'll excuse my dust when I step
I used to make all my money from just gigs, really, being a jazz musician. Now I'd say it's half and half, going out and doing shows. The other half is now writing songs, either for other people to sing or for theatre shows. So I got into writing for theatre a couple of years ago. I've got 4 on the go this year, so when you leave, I'll be in my shed, scribbling away, working on new theatre shows, some of my own ideas, others I've been commissioned to do. So I've had this funny relationship with musical theatre, because my dad wrote lots of musical theatre, mainly as a lyricist, but it's been something it was his big love, and he ended up doing it a lot. And I suppose it's the same with me, where I kind of went into jazz to try and carve my own thing there. But it's come back to the thing that I suppose you can't ever avoid what you've been surrounded by. Yeah, go into the shed and write, and the lyrics are the slog, because they have to be right, and the music is more of a feeling. It's more of a sort of instinct. It's just the way I do it, and I'm quite sort of methodical with rhyming and rhythm and scansion and all that stuff. Yeah. Sort of follow without kind of trying to ruin the inspiration of it all. It's at the forefront of my mind every morning when I wake up, and this is the first time I'm telling anyone. I got asked to dep on a production of Footloose in the West End. At the start of the show goes digga 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 push da 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 da. The drum fill was on my keyboard, not the drummer. He was busy drumming. And I got it wrong, so it came in late, but the cast had already started singing on the stage. So the first bit that the audience sees had my drum fill completely crashing the whole show. There's an explosion sound as well I had. So I was supposed to play a church organ. It didn't get much better during the first half, and the MD, I noticed he was on the phone during this. And I thought, that is unprofessional. Get off the phone. Turns out that the guy I'd been on the phone to was the guy who gave me the gig in the first place, who he'd called and said, you need to come in. This guy is an absolute joke. So I was fired. Halfway through. Footloose. But I don't think I've ever felt worse in my life. I mean, that sort of pit of your stomach sickness that you just feel like you feel so low. And I do feel ashamed and sorry that I'd gone into that not prepared, not qualified. But what I did, I walked out of the theatre at whatever it was, 8:30, and I thought, I'm going to drown my sorrows. I'm going to go to Pizza Express, Dean Street. And Martin Taylor was on, great jazz guitarist. And he just finished his first set, and he said hello, and we went to the Toucan upstairs. We went for a pint of Guinness, and he said, I'll buy a Guinness. And I said, can I just tell you what's happened? I need to see some music that kind of gets my soul back in order. And then he said, come on, sing a few songs with me. And Martin's a hero of mine, huge fan. And it was an amazing kind of resetting of the scales. I went back downstairs and I sang a couple of numbers. Martin said, I'm going to invite Joe up. And I kind of, I ended that night back at sort of ground zero and more. So, a good and a bad. Recently started a collaboration with David Walliams. I did a musical adaptation of one of his books called The Midnight Gang.
Is that?
Last year.
Oh, okay.
Which was on at Chichester, and is hopefully things are happening this year with it. And we're going to start working on something else together. I did a cabaret 20-minute set in front of some incredibly daunting people like Tom Jones and Goldie and Lulu and
You're so showbiz.
David Furnish, not Elton. He was not there. Thank God. That would have been frightening in front of Elton. Quite showbiz. Yeah, it's odd because I grew up with my dad he was on the telly a lot, and he would always introduce us to famous people. It would always seem quite normal, and that doesn't. I'm not saying that to sound awful, sort of. But he didn't make it. It was just some people. He used to play a lot of charity cricket matches, and there were always people like, some of my cricket heroes, plus celebs of the time. Oh, the Metropolis. Did you bring your clubs?
So she smiled at all my stories. So she laughed at all my jokes. So she giggled like a fairy.
As I said earlier about juggling the two bits of writing and performing, I don't ever want to drop the performing. If I wasn't getting that sensation of performing and playing music to an audience and learning about what audiences respond to, I want to be Tony Bennett. I still want to be singing when I'm in my 80s, and to keep the passion and also to pass it on. I love trying to, without sounding preachy, I like working with younger people and trying to offload some of what I know and some of the passion I have to keep it going, because everyone thinks music will just always happen and it'll be fine. But as you can see from the way sometimes governments and councils treat music as that, as something that is fine on its own, you need to keep it fed and cared for. Now I'm going to the Watermill Jazz Club.
What
Mill, that's it, where I learned to swim.
Oh, that is where you learned to swim. Okay.